be gay in Hollywood you never expected. They be having these big mansion parties, and the mansion party, the whole mansion is a party, and then it's a separate party in the little rooms. I ain't been famous that goddamn long. I'm excited in a motherfucker to be at the mansion party. You be looking at all the goddamn rooms, and you fuck around and look in the wrong room and Come here.
You open the wrong door and suddenly, boom, two legends caught in the same room. Two names people have not stopped whispering about for years, Andre 3000 and Lauryn Hill. After decades of silence, both have finally decided to speak about why they vanished from the music scene, right when their stars were burning the brightest. And surprisingly, the name at the center of it all, once again, is Diddy. Sounds wild, right? Especially since Lauryn spent most of her career trying to stay far away from him. But if history has shown us anything, it is that Diddy somehow finds his way into everyone's story, and chaos tends to follow wherever he goes. Like Lauryn, Andre also tried to distance himself, but by the time he realized how deep things ran, it was already too late. According to whispers in the industry, Diddy allegedly tried to lure Andre into compromising situations disguised as career opportunities, but Andre refused to play that game. For years, fans assumed Andre and Lauryn simply walked away because they were tired of the fame or had made enough money to live quietly. After all, both had careers most artists could only dream of. Andre's albums were massive, selling over 500,000 copies in the first week, dominating charts, and winning multiple Grammys, including Album of the Year. His hits like Ms. Jackson and Hey Ya defined an era, yet, just as he hit the peak, he vanished without explanation. Now we know it was not about ego, it was about survival. Andre recently revealed that powerful people in the industry use their fame as shields to do dark and manipulative things behind the scenes, and he wanted no part of it. The problem with being successful, he said, is that once you reach a certain level, people think you can do whatever you want, and no one will ever stop you. Those words say everything. They capture the exact reason why so many artists lose themselves in fame. Andre once said, "You can easily go down the wrong path when you're in that world, and the only thing that pulls you out is the people who remind you who you really are." That statement hit differently because it came from someone who lived through the chaos, but chose peace instead. Not long after that quote resurfaced, whispers began to circulate that Andre had seen things at Diddy's infamous parties that completely changed how he viewed the music business. The rumors claimed that what he saw was not just wild behavior, it was something darker, something that crossed the line between entertainment and exploitation. Whatever he witnessed, it made him realize he wanted no part of that world. Instead of speaking out or creating a spectacle, he quietly walked away and never looked back. His exit confused many at first. Fans thought maybe it was creative burnout or a shift in artistic focus. But as more stories started to emerge about what really happens behind those luxury gates and mansion walls, people began to understand why Andre disappeared when he did. It was not just about protecting his peace, it was about protecting his soul. What makes this story even more intriguing is that Andre was not the only one who hinted at what goes on behind those closed doors. Comedian Cat Williams had already touched on it years earlier. During one of his stand-up specials in 2004, he told the crowd he was pressured to attend one of those freak-off parties. But the moment he stepped inside and saw what was happening, he was so disturbed that he turned around and left. It sounded funny to the audience at the time, but the way Cat delivered it, half joking, half serious, made some people wonder if he was really trying to tell the truth disguised as comedy. The crazy part? Andre 3000 was sitting in the audience that night. If you watch closely, Cat keeps glancing in his direction, almost as if he is silently checking whether Andre would acknowledge what he was saying. Andre just laughs it off, but fans are convinced the two of them must have spoken privately about it afterward, and that Cat's joke was his clever way of letting the truth slip out without saying it outright. Years later, as more people in the industry began to speak up about what really happens at those elite gatherings, Cat's story suddenly seemed less like a joke and more like a confession that everyone had missed. In hindsight, it feels like Andre's laughter that night was not amusement, it was recognition. Maybe he knew exactly what Cat was talking about, but also understood the danger of speaking too openly. That silent understanding between them, one man on stage trying to tell the truth through humor, another in the crowd who had seen it for himself, says more than any interview ever could. Both men chose distance over exposure, silence over selling out. And while the industry continued to chew up and spit out artists chasing validation, Andre found freedom in isolation. He traded the spotlight for simplicity, the chaos for clarity. Fans may never know exactly what he saw, but judging by how fiercely he's guarded his peace since, whatever it was must have been enough to make him walk away from everything most people spend their lives chasing. Some say Andre and Kat were the lucky ones. They saw the machine for what it really was and escaped before it destroyed them. Now, just like Andre, Lauryn Hill also had a very successful career but left in the middle of it just to escape Diddy and his dirty antics. Her first and only solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, debuted at #1 with 422,000 copies sold in the first week, became the first ever hip-hop album to win Album of the Year at the Grammys, won another Grammy for Best Rap Album, has since sold over 10 million copies in the US and 20 million worldwide, and popped out the #1 hit single doo-wop, That Thing, which I still bump to this day, baby. She was basically the female version of what Andre 3000 represented for men in the rap game: creative, raw, and powerful. But just like Andre, Lauryn hasn't released any more solo albums since and does her best to stay as far away from the industry as she can. As I said earlier, folks used to think she just made her millions and decided to bow out gracefully, but it turns out there was some shady stuff going on behind the scenes involving Diddy that she wanted nothing to do with. Even though Diddy wasn't publicly posed up with her in pictures or shouting her out in interviews, he was still connected to her business moves in ways most people didn't realize. You see, Lauryn founded the Refugee Project back in 1996, a non-profit organization aimed at helping and supporting at-risk urban youth. And guess who was quietly one of the co-founders? That's right, Diddy himself. At first, the partnership looked innocent. It was marketed as a noble cause bringing artists together to uplift kids from struggling neighborhoods. But over time, Lauryn allegedly started noticing inconsistencies. Rumors say she discovered that some of the funds raised for the project weren't reaching the communities they were meant for. Insiders claimed Lauryn confronted the people involved, including Diddy, about the missing money and questionable partnerships. And that's when things started getting tense. Apparently, Lauryn realized she had stepped into something much bigger, something she couldn't control. Some reports claim that when she began asking questions, she suddenly found herself being iced out of certain circles. Invitations disappeared. Industry insiders stopped answering her calls. Even producers and collaborators who once lined up to work with her started backing away. It was as if the music world had collectively turned its back on her overnight. And let's not forget, this was around the same time she began expressing deep spiritual and moral conflicts with the industry. Remember when Lauryn said she didn't want to be a part of Babylon? She was talking about the very machine that, according to her, corrupted artists' souls in exchange for fame and power. Diddy, on the other hand, thrived within that same machine. To Lauryn, he represented everything she was trying to escape. People close to Lauryn say she began to see the music industry as a kind of trap, a place where creativity was bought, controlled, and ultimately destroyed. And when she tried to pull away, powerful people made sure her name was buried under rumors. Suddenly, stories about her being crazy, difficult, and unstable began circulating. She was late to shows? They said it was unprofessional. She talked about God and truth? They said she was delusional. Everything she did was twisted and used to discredit her. A classic pattern we've seen countless times before when an artist refuses to play by the industry's rules. Meanwhile, Lauryn reportedly received warnings from people in her circle. Some even told her to stop digging, to leave certain matters alone for her own safety. But Lauryn, being who she is, didn't back down. She quietly withdrew from the public eye, moved her focus to her family, and started living life on her own terms. But here's where it gets even more eerie. Not long after Lauryn's departure, several other artists began echoing her sentiments, speaking out against industry demons, manipulation, and secretive elite gatherings. And who always seemed to be lurking around the center of these whispers? You guessed it, Diddy. Whether it was through collaborations, business deals, or random appearances at events, Diddy somehow found his way into every corner of the entertainment world. In fact, according to one source who once worked with Lauryn during her Fugees days, there was an incident where Lauryn was invited to a private event in New York hosted by major record execs. She reportedly showed up but left minutes after arriving, telling a friend later that the energy was off and that she felt something wasn't right. That same event, insiders say, had connections to Diddy's infamous after-hours parties, the same ones. Multiple artists have since hinted were full of disturbing scenes that could ruin careers if ever made public. Andre 3000's disappearance from the spotlight followed a strikingly similar pattern. Both he and Lauryn were at their creative peaks. Both were celebrated by critics, both were respected by fans, and both suddenly vanished. Neither had public scandals. Neither flopped. They just left. That's why people have always linked their stories, and why the idea of Diddy being involved keeps resurfacing. It's not even about Diddy directly ending their careers. It's about the environment he helped create. The type of industry culture that punished authenticity and rewarded submission. Andre and Lauryn weren't the kind of artists you could easily control. They had too much soul, too much intellect, and too much independence. They saw the system for what it was, and instead of losing themselves to it, they walked away. But of course, walking away comes with a price. Lauryn faced public humiliation and lawsuits. Andre battled anxiety and creative burnout, spending years in isolation before re-emerging as the quiet, flute-playing wanderer we see today. Both of them had to rebuild their peace outside the spotlight. And through all that, Diddy just kept climbing higher, expanding his empire, untouched by the whispers that followed him. Now, years later, as new allegations and lawsuits against Diddy continue surfacing, fans are looking back at these stories with fresh eyes. People are beginning to connect the dots, wondering if Lauryn and Andre knew more than they ever let on. Maybe their disappearances weren't random. Maybe they were self-preservation. Think about it. Lauryn once said in an interview, "I had to step away before I lost myself completely." At the time, people took it as emotional burnout. But now, with everything coming out about Diddy's past, it suddenly sounds like a warning. A coded message about what happens when you get too close to the dark heart of the entertainment world. And here's the wildest part. Even after all these years, Lauryn and Andre still won't badmouth anyone by name. They speak in metaphors, in wisdom, in spiritual language, but those who pay attention know exactly who they're referring to. The same powers that be Lauryn warned about. The same soulless system Andre described. And the same party culture that countless others have hinted at. So maybe their silence isn't weakness. Maybe it's strategy. Maybe Lauryn and Andre decided that the only way to truly win was to walk away and live free. Away from Diddy's world, away from the illusions, away from the traps. And honestly, that might be the most powerful move of all. He was not just a co-founder, he was also a trustee alongside Mariah Carey, Busta Rhymes, and Spike Lee. This was before Lauryn even released The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And since their partnership went well, she decided to get into more business with him behind the scenes, including allowing him to handle some financial and marketing aspects of her career. At that time, it seemed like a smart move. Diddy was one of the biggest moguls in music, and aligning with him meant influence, reach, and endless opportunity. But what Lauryn did not realize was that behind all the lights, cameras, and smiles, there was something dark growing underneath. Interestingly enough, there were no public reports of them having any issues during their business dealings. Everything looked picture perfect from the outside. Two successful artists at their prime, supporting a project aimed at uplifting others. In fact, in 2023, the same year Cassie filed her lawsuit that triggered Diddy's downfall, Lauryn and Diddy were announced as co-headliners for the Roots Festival. Fans thought it was going to be a nostalgic reunion of hip-hop greatness. But it was at this very event that people started noticing something was off. According to multiple inside sources, despite both of them being headliners, Lauryn refused to be in the same space with him. She reportedly avoided him completely, skipping joint meetings, rehearsals, and even post-event gatherings. Some claimed she made sure her dressing room was placed far away from his, and she left immediately after her performance. To the public, it just looked like two legends doing their sets, but behind the scenes, the energy was tense. Then, not long after that festival, Cassie's lawsuit dropped and everything suddenly began to make sense. Fans connected the dots and speculated that Lauryn must have experienced something similar to what Cassie went through, or at least witnessed things that made her distance herself completely. People began revisiting Lauryn's sudden disappearance from the spotlight, realizing it may not have been burnout or creative exhaustion. It could have been trauma, manipulation, or betrayal. Rumors started spreading that Diddy had her blackballed from the industry after she refused to play by his rules. And when you look at the timeline, it almost adds up too perfectly. Lauryn released one of the most iconic albums of all time, sold millions of copies, won multiple Grammys, and then silence. No follow-up album, no label push, no major collaborations. It is almost like someone deliberately pulled the plug on her career. Lauryn herself has never confirmed or denied Diddy's role in it, but she has not been shy about calling out her label. She once said, "The wild thing is, no one from my label has ever called me and asked, 'How can we help you make another album?' Ever." Ever? The frustration in her voice said everything without her having to name names. The truth is, the music industry has a long history of silencing artists who refuse to comply, especially those who value their morals over money. And Lauryn has always been about integrity, faith, and authenticity. People who know her personally say she was never comfortable with the kinds of scenes and parties Diddy was known for, the ones whispered about for years, filled with drugs, manipulation, and secrecy. There are even unconfirmed claims that Lauryn saw things that left her completely disillusioned with fame. Some say she witnessed people being exploited. Others say she realized how deep the corruption ran, and instead of selling her soul for success, she chose peace. In many ways, her disappearance from the public eye feels less like a fall and more like an escape. Fans online have continued to debate the story, with one person writing, "Lauryn Hill was the complete package. She was unrealistically beautiful, a top-tier rapper and singer. I still can't believe she has so few albums." Another commenter said, "Maybe she left because she saw too much. The industry protects predators, not artists." These reactions capture what many have been thinking for years, that Lauryn didn't just leave the game, she ran from something darker. And when you pair her story with Andre 3000's sudden exit, it paints an even bigger picture of what might really be happening behind closed doors in the industry. Two of the most gifted creative minds in hip-hop, both walked away at the height of their power, both connected in some way to Diddy, both choosing silence over fame. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you look at how many careers have mysteriously crumbled after crossing paths with Diddy, from artists to executives, it becomes hard to ignore the pattern. As the truth about him keeps unraveling, more and more fans believe Lauryn and Andre were the lucky ones. They got out before the machine could eat them alive. And now, with Diddy's empire finally cracking under the weight of decades of secrets, people are starting to understand why so many legends vanished without explanation. Sometimes disappearing is not weakness, it is survival.